Hi everyone, welcome back. Today's video is going to be a tag and it's called like behind the scenes of YouTube tag. I did actually film a tag similar to this probably when I first started YouTube, so I don't know, 3 years ago now, but there's a new one put out by Annette's Makeup Corner and Pruelaroo, and I wanted to film it because I think it'll give you a little bit more insight into how I film videos, how long stuff takes, and just give you a little bit more information overall. So let's dive right into the questions. Number one is, what was the hardest part about starting a channel? And I think for me, it was just putting my face out there. I already had a blog, so I was used to seeing my face in a still photo, but I didn't really know how I spoke to a camera or how my personality would come across. I initially didn't start a channel because I wasn't confident enough that I was, I think, young enough even to be filming YouTube videos. Most of the people were quite young at the time and I felt like I was just a little bit too old, but YouTube has always been my preferred medium instead of blogging. And so eventually I was just like, this is ridiculous. Just go ahead and start a YouTube channel. And I still run the blog. I still love doing that, but YouTube is definitely what I prefer. So really the hardest part was just getting used to talking to a camera. I think it's not a very natural thing. It's not something that people grow up with, or at least I didn't. I mean, maybe it's more, you know, prevalent now with social media that people are talking to their phones all the time, but I grew up with an analog childhood. Like, I didn't even have a digital camera, I don't think, until I was like 23 years old, and I don't think I had a cell phone until I was 24, something like that. So learning to talk to a camera was the biggest like stumbling block, I guess. Question number 3 is, what equipment do you use? So the thing that is lighting this whole video, even though it's like, what, 5:30 p.m. right now, so the sun's starting to go down, is an 18-inch ring light by Stellar Lighting. Love the product, would never recommend the brand. They are incredibly difficult to deal with, so please don't ever buy from Stellar Lighting. Newer makes ring lights that are just as good, so I would recommend them. You can buy them easily on Amazon. My camera is a Canon 80D, which I picked up I think last year, and I love it so much. The focusing on the 80D is so much better than the Rebel T5i, also by Canon. The difference is incredible. Like, I didn't know what I was missing when I was using the Rebel T5i. I'm so happy that I upgraded to the 80D. Now, it's very expensive with a lens. I think I have the 18 to 135 millimeter lens. I think with the lens it came to like 1,700 or 1,800 Canadian, which is a lot of money, but I wanted to make that investment, so I did. I have a microphone that I use. It's the Rode VideoMic Pro. They make a lesser version of it, but I bought the high-end one because I'd rather just spend the money on something that I know is gonna work for a long time. I think that was like $350, something like that. Aside from that, I also have tripods and light stands, but those aren't very exciting. Question number 3 is, what editing program do you use and what did you start with? I use Adobe Premiere Pro, which I really enjoy. It was not easy to learn on. I think my first video took me 5 hours of just trying to understand how the program worked. It was very tedious, but YouTube is very helpful, so I was able to look up tutorials without an issue. I started out with, I think, Windows Movie Maker, and I think I used the one that's native on a MacBook Pro as well. I can't remember what it's called. Hated those programs. I mean, they work, but they were not pleasant to use. The Mac one was better than Windows Movie Maker. Windows Movie Maker would crash on me constantly and lose the whole video. I was so fed up with that one. Question number 4 is, did you have any experience with making videos before starting YouTube? Not really, and it wouldn't have been in the same format that we use now. Like, I think I would have made videos for high school classes where somebody's got like a big camcorder that their parents owned and we'd film on like a huge VHS cassette or one of the little micro cassettes. I don't even know what they're called. And I don't even know how anybody edited those together. So I did that, but nothing like what I do now. Question number 5 is, on average, how long does it take you to edit? And everybody answers this the same way, but it is totally dependent on what you're filming. A makeup tutorial, which I have said this before, but they are the least watched videos on YouTube, take the absolute longest to film and edit. We're talking like a minimum of 3 hours, but more likely 5 hours of work. It's just not worth it to film a lot of tutorials when people aren't watching them, unfortunately. So those definitely take the longest. And I smell something. Did my candle go out? Oh, it did. Palette reviews can take quite long to edit because you're incorporating swatches and looks and all that. So maybe about 2 to 3 hours. I would say on average, most videos take about 2 hours to edit. I don't want to sell myself short here because editing does take out a large chunk of time. 2 to 3 hours, we'll go with that. Question number 6 is, what was the worst technical accident you've had since starting your channel? And I haven't had any, which is really surprising because you always hear about YouTubers running into one problem or another. And I listened to poor Amy say that she'd forgotten to turn her microphone on so many times, that she deleted her videos, and I was just like, oh, that is horrible. So for me, honestly, I'm surprised. I thought for sure I would have forgotten to turn on my microphone at some point or another, but it hasn't happened yet. So yeah, there's nothing catastrophic that I can think of, which I'm really thankful for. And of course, now that I've said it, I'm sure something terrible will happen. Question number 7 is, do you ever film something and not upload it? No, hasn't happened. Question number 8 is, do you write a script or plan what you're going to talk about? So I used to write a script for my makeup tutorials when I do the voiceover part, but I found it sounded really monotonous when I did it that way. So I basically got rid of that and just sort of speak it out as I go now, which is a little bit more difficult and took some getting used to because I wouldn't necessarily remember what was coming next in the video as I was talking out loud. So that was a little bit awkward, and that took me a really long time before I obliterated the script for makeup tutorials. But if I'm just filming a chatty video like this, no, I don't write a script for it. I do plan out what I'm gonna say for palette reviews because I want to make sure I cover as many points as I've had in my head while I've been testing out the product. So I'll usually write some notes on my thoughts throughout the week as I'm testing out the product, but they're not like point for point what I'm going to be saying exactly. It's more like reference notes. Question number 9 is, have you started talking differently since starting your YouTube channel? I don't think a ton. I mean, I know I speak more confidently to the camera now than I used to. I used to sound really quiet, which is not me at all in person. I'm quite a confident person. So I know that I speak with confidence to the camera now, which is very different than I used to. But in terms of how I speak, I think I've learned to get rid of the word a lot because it sounds really terrible when you're editing yourself and you're always saying the word And I do still do it sometimes, but I think I've made a conscious effort to get rid of it just because it doesn't sound great. I don't think it's changed how I speak to people in person though. I mean, maybe getting rid of the word is different in person too, but I don't think it's changed much on how I speak to people. Question number 10 is, what's the one thing that annoys you when editing yourself? And this is not necessarily just while editing, but I can really trip over my words a lot when I'm speaking to the camera. So sometimes I'll have to say a sentence like 3 or 4 times sometimes I'll have to say a sentence 3 or 4 times before I eventually get out what I'm trying to say in like a logical sense. It doesn't happen all the time, and I've definitely gotten better over the years, but editing is a wonderful thing and you don't see all the blunders that I make while talking. So that's my biggest pet peeve when I'm editing myself, because I know that I'm making mistakes repeatedly and I've already made the mistakes while talking to the camera, and then I have to re-watch it while editing it and go through those mistakes again. So that's really annoying. Question number 11 is, what is your biggest editing pet peeve in others' videos? Editing pet peeve? I can't really think of like things that I don't like in other people's editing. I mean, honestly, if I don't like somebody's personality, that's also obvious in how they edit their videos, so I end up not watching them. So I really like the people that I watch, and I don't feel like they do any crazy editing, which is what I prefer. So I can't really think of anything. Question number 12 is, do you ever feel self-conscious in your videos? No. I mean, I used to feel a little bit weird about talking to the camera when my husband was within earshot, but like, I don't care anymore. But I don't feel self-conscious talking to a camera, so no. Question number 13 is, what keeps you inspired to keep creating? I think it's just because I like talking about makeup. I like trying new things, putting something different out there, and being interactive with people. So whether that's me watching other YouTube channels and interacting with those creators, or the people who comment on my videos. I respond to every single comment that I get because I love interacting with people, and if somebody's gonna leave me a comment, I feel almost a need to respond back. So that's what keeps me going. Comments on the blog, comments on YouTube, that's what keeps me going, because it's nice to know that people are watching and they're responding to the content that I'm putting out. And I guess that's really what just keeps me inspired to keep putting out content. Okay, that is it for the behind the scenes of YouTube tag. Thanks so much for listening to my answers today, and I will catch you next time. Bye.